of the Bills Committee on Shipping Legislation Control of Smoke Emission Amendment Bill 2014. This is the second meeting. Today we have invited deputations to join us in a discussion with the administration on the proposed amendments in the bill. So perhaps here we can invite the deputations and the officials to come in. Since the last meeting we have received a number of papers. We raised a number of questions in the first question, and we have requested a written response from the administration. At a later stage of the meeting, we invite the administration to introduce the administration's response to issues raised at the previous meeting.
I'd
like to welcome the administration's team. I will introduce the representatives one by one. We have some 2 hours, and we'll be listening to the deputations first. Welcome, deputations, to this meeting of our Bills Committee. Before I start, a few procedural points here. On behalf of the Bills Committee on Shipping Legislation Control of Smoke Emission Amendment Bill 2014, I'd like to welcome all deputations and the administration's representatives to attend this meeting. Please, if necessary, if you can wear the earpiece and choose the right channel, channel 0, 4, channel 1, Cantonese, channel 2, English, channel 3, Putonghua.
Interpretation in the meantime.
I now invite the deputations to speak one by one. I'll give each deputation 5 minutes, and we're going to time your speech accordingly. We have also received written submissions. All of the written submissions received have been uploaded to LegCo's website and also circulated to members of the Bills Committee and the administration. So you don't need to repeat your written submission word by word here. And if necessary, and if you like, you can supplement what you have said after the meeting in writing to the Bills Committee. And again, the submissions will be circulated to members and the administration. May I remind you that your speeches and your submissions are not protected by the Legislative Council Powers and Privileges Ordinance. And also, please don't speak in mixed code to facilitate simultaneous interpretation. If there are no questions here, may I first of all invite Designing Hong Kong.
Chief Executive Officer Designing Hong Kong to speak first. He will use PowerPoint presentation to assist his deputation. Mr. Fisherman.
Chairman, members, I speak here as the CEO of Designing Hong Kong, but also as the District Councillor of Pok Fu Lam, because my residents in Pok Fu Lam live along the East Lama Channel, which is the world's busiest shipping channel. So they are very concerned about the air pollution caused by the shipping traffic through the channel. We fully support Designing Hong Kong, and definitely my residents in Pok Fu Lam fully support the measures proposed by government to control marine air pollution, but we don't think it's enough. Fuel switch at berth is too late. You know, if the switch of fuel should be done upon entering Hong Kong waters and not just when the boat is at berth in Kwai Chung. And I think that this particular chart, which is produced in a report published by the Civic Exchange, the think tank, gives a good indication of the problems that we are facing, especially in areas like Pok Fu Lam. The colouring here, the lighter colour is, and then so you see a range from darker to lighter colours, and the red colour is of course in Kwai Chung, Kwai Ching, the area next to the container port, where we have the heaviest concentration of the emissions measured. And if you then see the slightly darker orange one, you see the clear indication here of the world's busiest shipping channel, which is the East Lama Channel. So what we're going to resolve with this proposal of switching at birth is basically reduce the red color to somewhere around the yellow color, but we're not solving the orange color, which is the whole area where the shipping actually takes place, which is affecting a very large and major part of the population of Hong Kong. And that's why we're saying it's not enough and government needs to do more. The suggestion that we have to wait for the entire Pearl River Delta to agree with each other, I don't think is sufficient. The shipping lines will continue to use Hong Kong, even if we ask people to stop using the fuel at the boundary. And the boundary is indicated by the black dotted line. If we ask them to switch fuel on before they enter those waters, then basically we spare the Hong Kong community from these pollutants. Now, these following are photographs taken recently. This is every day. This ship is in the harbor every day. It is one of our kind of gambling and sex ships that goes out every night with a group of people and hangs outside just the Hong Kong territorial waters and then comes back in. And this is the air pollution that is caused by this particular vessel every day. And this photograph I get from the community sent to Designing Hong Kong almost every day. And we've passed them on to the Marine Department on some occasions to take actions, and they find it very hard to take actions. The same vessel on another time, again, polluting the air and causing great nuisance. And Marine Department has a great problem. I mean, they can't take action. This is photographs taken by the residents of Pok Phalam. They're doing that every day. We're getting everyday photographs. There's a community action going on where they photograph the vessels coming through the channel. And these are the photographs that are taken off the East Lama Channel. And this is what comes through. Fuel switch's birth doesn't stop this. And what we need to do is fuel switch at the boundary. Don't come into Hong Kong. Switch your fuel first. And these are the photographs we take. I have regular conversation with the Harbour Patrol section of the Marine Department, trying to identify the names of the vessels, and they will then contact those that are in charge of those vessels, either the shipping lines or the captains, to see what has gone on and what caused this pollution. But this is a daily occurrence, an ongoing concern for definitely my residents who live right in the in this smoke. And this is in Hong Kong. Now, this particular vessel is basically a local vessel, and we can see this is at a barging point in Telegraph Bay. Again, this is not being addressed in the proposed the marine control measures, the marine air pollution control measures. Again, just a barge working in Telegraph Bay. So the issues that we try to point out is, yes, we support what government proposes, but it's way, way not enough. I mean, this is not enough. This is not going to help. This is just helping a few people living out in Kwai Chung, and it may help some people working in the container terminal, but it doesn't help really Hong Kong. Fuel switch outside before people enter the Hong Kong waters is what's needed. Thank you very much.
好，多謝晒。下一位呢係邀請係
Next, we have Mr. Gang Siu Wai from Hong Kong and Kowloon Floating Fishermen's Welfare Promotion Association. I thank Mr. Zimmerman for giving us those photos. If you know the harbor, you know that those vessels are found in major channels, major navigation channels, and the situation has very little to do with small vessels in Hong Kong. Of course, we need to protect our environment. It's a global trend, and the government has to do something. The government has provided a lot of subsidy to the motorists, to drivers, subsidies up to $10 billion for changing to new vehicles. But vessels are not treated the same. I just don't understand why the government doesn't provide some subsidies for us to upgrade our vessels. So they are being discriminatory in the treatment they offer. To be more realistic, In the local vessels advisory committee and other consultative bodies, we have had a discussion. The response is not strong. The Marine Department has tried to pacify us, so to speak, and that is to say that they are saying that the rules will not be stricter than before. But if that's the case, why change the law? And that is, if there's a complaint against one of our vessels, how is the government going to enforce the law? That's our major concern. A big shipping company may operate a vessel carrying thousands of passengers, and there may be an argument between the officer and the passenger, and then a complaint was launched saying that it carries too many passengers, and the Marine Department would stop the vessel and do a head count. So the question is, how can we ensure that law enforcement is done in a reasonable manner? I think we should get an answer from the Marine Department. As fishermen, we can see that from the chart that even the more seriously affected areas are not colored black. Small vessels are not very polluting because the horsepower is small. We are not in Hong Kong waters all the time. We don't want to be the victims of a new piece of legislation. We'll appreciate it if the government offers us some assistance to upgrade our vessels. And we hope the Marine Department will adopt a more people-oriented approach in enforcement. Don't press for prosecution all the time. And so please don't overreact. It's just like using a machine gun to kill cockroaches. Next, we have Mr. Zhang Wings from Clean Air Network. Thank you, Chairman. Clean Air Network is an independent, non-profit-making organization. We would like to encourage the public to pay attention to issues and speak on issues that are related to air pollution and health, and or a bill like the one under discussion. We support the legislative approach in the bill, but as Mr. Zimmerman has said, this step alone is just a small step in a long process to reduce air pollution. Today we don't have anyone from the Environment Bureau. They are all from the Marine Department and the CDB. There are so much more that we need to do. We hope in the middle of the year we'll see the land-based electricity supply for the cruise terminal. We would like to see swift action taken by the government to do that. There are a few points we have made in our written submission, which I am not going to repeat here. And let me also respond to Mr. Keung's views. We would like to see a piece of legislation that would enforce the same standards as chimney emissions. For if you are guilty of air pollution in respect of a chimney, you can be imprisoned. We hope the same penalty can be imposed for marine offenders. As the administration has said, the standards will not be changed. In other words, what will be an offense in the future after the enactment of the bill is already an offense now. So if they want to enforce the law now, they can do it. Actually, the Audit Commission has already highlighted the problems in report number 59. So whether we go for this piece of legislation or not, the Marine Department should step up with enforcement. Because we're talking about PM10, PM2.5, which can cause a lot of health impacts. And a lot of the air pollution problem we face now comes from marine traffic. And lastly, let me clarify a point. And now, one of the reasons for this bill is the alleged enforcement difficulties. It's because of the problem of the definition of smoke, black smoke. And now you refer to a chart and nuisance. But nuisance is a common law concept, so you may still face enforcement difficulties. So after the enactment of the bill, we have to clarify that whether the law is going to be enforced in accordance with the so-called recommend chart. Would that be a requirement of mens rea, or should someone only be held liable if it's done knowingly, or is mens rea no longer an essential element? We need to clarify this, because clarifying this can help enforcement a lot, and we will have a clarity. And if that's clarified, we support this bill, and we hope that the Marine Department will step up enforcement, whether through visual inspection or other means, and so that we can tackle more effectively pollution at sea.
Well, today there are also several organizations that have submitted their opinions to us. They include a number of organizations such as the China Classification Society, Hong Kong Branch Friends of the Earth, and Guangdong and Hong Kong Feeder Association Limited. So we would like to ask the government representatives. We understand that you have drafted a response paper, but now you've heard the views of the deputation. So would anyone of you like to respond to these deputations? Is it Ms. Jenny Chan or Mr. Chiu Hon Chim? Ms. Chan. Thank you, Chairman. Well, maybe I can make a response first.
Mr. Zimmerman, for supporting the bill. The purpose of the bill is to enhance control of dark smoke. So it's actually the opacity of smoke that is the target of control here. As regards to OGV, the fuel switch above, it has been separately addressed by EPD, by the Environmental Protection Department. They are actually drafting a regulation to make it a mandatory requirement for OGVs to switch fuel. And they expect that the regulation can be ready for tabling in electrical later this year. I note your view that you consider OGV fuel switch is not adequate to address the air pollution problem in Hong Kong. So what I understand from EPD is that they are considering a package of measures, and for further control, the view, maybe they have already made it known to you, I just convey it here, is they consider it more effective to take a regional approach when we want to control vessels entering Hong Kong to use fuel with sulfur content capped at a certain limit, because Hong Kong waters are really very small in area. So if we just exercise to control within Hong Kong waters, then maybe the effectiveness is not so apparent. So that's their view. I want to make clear is that for environmental protection measures, they are generally led by EPD and the ENB, Environment Bureau. But for this legislation, it's controlling the opacity of smoke. It's regulated under the shipping legislation. So it's our bureau, the Transport and Housing Bureau, together with the Marine Department, take the lead. So I note your point of the limitation of our bill, which is true, because the scope is limited to controlling the opacity of smoke. So that's my response to Mr. Zimmerman.
As for Mr. Kang's remarks, He mentioned about subsidizing vessels. As for the engines of vessels, if they are maintained well, actually there would not be emission of dark smoke. So you are not required to change your engines to a more advanced model. So it would not be adding cost to your operations. As for law enforcement, actually for the Marine Department, now it has already been making reference to the Riggleman chart. This is while they are conducting ship surveying. They would look at the shades of the smoke emitted by the vessels. If it is of shade 2 or darker than shade 2, and if the dark smoke lasts for 3 minutes or more, then there may be a possible prosecution. The Marine Department has told us that they are already using the Riggleman chart, and for this bill, it will clarify this point, that is, the Riggleman chart will be used as an objective standard. And we would also like to thank Mr. Cheng for supporting our bill. Now, for the EPD, now is looking at fuel switch at berth and onshore power supplier facilities. The EPD will be discussing with the Environmental Affairs panel about this. And also you mentioned whether there should be an penalty, that is imprisonment. We have also been considering that. The Marine Department has been stepping up its law enforcement efforts for surveying of local vessels. The vessels would have to pass a dark smoke test, and also their random visual inspections. We have seen significant improvements in the past few years. According to the Marine Department, in 2007, so 40% of vessels were emitting dark smokes, and in 2013, the figure was reduced to 1.4%. So we think that at this stage, we do not need the imprisonment provision. In the past 10 years, the government or the court has never given any imprisonment sentence to any other emission violators. The Marine Department has been enforcing the law, and in the future will continue to do this, and visual inspection will be continued. If there are problems, the Marine Department will enhance its manpower in this area. As for whether the coxswain would have to do it knowingly or whether there's mens rea involved, I will ask my colleague to supplement. When it comes to law enforcement, we would not consider whether the operator emits dark smoke knowingly. There is only one standard in the law, that is the time of emission and the shade of the emission. Any other supplements? These are our responses to the deputations. Members, would you like to ask any questions concerning the deputations' remarks? Mr. Sin Chung Kai, I would like to ask Mr. Zimmerman.
Switching field before entering into the seawater territory within Hong Kong. Is this of course, I believe this is some of the wishes that the residents of that area would like to have. But is this a normal practice around the world that you can actually govern the fuel mix within your jurisdictions? But can any government govern or dictate the fuel mix prior to the entering her territory?
Mr. Zimmerman?
I think that EPD can give examples to this council of these standards around other parts of the world and maybe Clean Air Network has more details on other locations where this is being done in the States and in Europe. There are countries who mandate that, and then the fuel switch takes place outside before the vessel comes in. It requires the ship to slow down. Most international ocean-going vessels have 2 tanks, one with clean fuel and one with dark, cheap fuel. So it's easy for them to do the switch. And Chairman, I have to apologize on the issue that I misspoke slightly on the topic. But if I could put 2 questions via you also that I think should be considered. If my residents are going to see those ships in the future, how can they get to provide the evidence that will lead to successful prosecution? Do they have to be a witness? Is the government going to give them a little chart so they can stand in the window looking at it? What is sufficient for a resident's report? I know that for vehicular smoke, I'm a spotter, and I can actually, if I spot, and I'm a resident spotter, then my spotting report is sufficient for a car to be called in for a maintenance check. I'm not sure that the Marine Department, Marine Department doesn't even have resources to make sure our ships are safe. I don't see how they have resources to make sure that ships don't pollute. So if we don't empower the community in this legislation, then this legislation is pretty powerless. Thank you.
Thank you. I will try to follow up with your question a little bit later on.
Mr. Chung, you want to supplement? Yes, I would like to add something. Just now, Mr. Sin asked a question, and it's about a regional emission control. But I think this is not directly related to the present bill. It's mentioned that there will be a long-term target. That is, Hong Kong should join with the Pearl River Delta so that a low-emission zone can be delineated. Now, in North America and in Europe, we can find examples like this. But, of course, this is about intra-regional cooperation. Of course, we would like to see that. So other than the piece of legislation we are talking about, I think the government should do more to achieve this. At the EA panel, we have been discussing this. That is how the air quality of Hong Kong can be improved. In particular, we have been talking about the fuels used by OGVs and whether fuels should be switched before they enter our waters. And the Environment Bureau has also been discussing with their counterparts in the Pearl River Delta. However, up to now, we haven't seen a concrete plan yet, and we haven't seen a clear timetable concerning onshore power supply facilities or fuel switch at berth. Well, as for this bill, it has nothing to do with fuel switch or onshore power supply or other air quality improvement measures. However, I am also a member of the EA panel, so I am also willing to discuss all this. Just now, Mr. Zimmerman asked the government a concrete question. That is, how can residents in those areas be assisted if they spot dark smoke from a vessel? What can they do? And will the government be cooperating more with the residents? And if so, how? Supposedly, a member of the community calls the Marine Department saying that they've seen such a vessel. How would the government follow up? Will they be asked to act as witness? I think Mr. Zimmerman wants to ask these questions. Thank you, Chairman. With regard to law enforcement, if this bill is passed by the Legislative Council, we will be doing a lot of publicity concerning the new law. We will be talking to vessel operators as well as the shipping industry. And also, We will be visiting relevant communities. We will be talking to the organizations. We will tell them about this new piece of legislation, and we will be explaining to them what is meant by Shade 2 in the regulation chart. And for law enforcement, we will be stepping up visual inspection.
And I also want to mention that in 2013, as pointed out by the PAS, vessels discovered with dark smoke problem dropped to 1.4%. Before, Mr. Zimmerman and residents of the Southern District are facing the channel, the East Lama Channel, and they see vessels passing by, and some vessels are emitting smoke. So from just a visual of the photos, well, I would say the emissions exceed the standards. In terms of complaints received, this year alone, we have received 30 complaints so far. But I have to say this, that using regulation chart Shape 2 as the standard is the standard in the bill, and the bill has not been enacted. We're still relying on the nuisance requirement in the existing law. After the bill is passed, if a complaint is received, we try to track down the vessel, we try to identify the vessel, and then we try to locate it. But you know, from East Lama Channel to Kwai Chung, it's just a journey of 45 minutes to an hour. So after we have received a complaint and we try to locate the vessel might already be in another place. But anyway, we try to find out the emission problems. If we see what Mr. Zimmerman has shown us in his photos, we will try to gather evidence as part of the enforcement. But if the vessel has already berthed and the engine switch off and the emissions are no longer seen, we try to get in touch with the complainant to get more information on the emission. And that is according to the complainant's observation was the standard in the law breached, and if so, we'll try to contact the vessel again. And that is to say, if our law enforcement officers do not see the emissions themselves, we have to rely on the complainant, the witness, in order to be successful in prosecution. As for Mr. Zimmerman said, the other point, and that is the officers, the spotter scheme proposed by Mr. Zimmerman. We'll see how things go after the enactment of the bill, and whether the dark smoke emissions becomes a more serious problem. And then we'll decide whether we should train some civilians to be spotters. Mr. Ho Chun-yin. Thank you. I think Mr. Chung has answered some of the questions I want to ask. But there's a good question raised by the EU chairman on community participation. In the last meeting, we were told that in a year there were only 4 prosecutions. Am I right? In terms of statistics, there was no prosecution last year. 2012, there were 2 cases. 2010, 1 case. 2007, 4 cases. So in this regard, dark smoke emissions by vessel in Hong Kong waters is not a serious problem. Now you want to incorporate a recruitment chart to provide an objective standard. All right, according to you, if you receive a complaint, you try to track the vessel. The vessel may have left the location. So why don't you check the vessel? The vessel will have to go sometime. They have to restart sometime. Why don't you check the vessel? Mr. Keung, I know Mr. Keung for a long time. Mr. Keung, the second speaker, have told me a lot of enforcement difficulties. I don't think Mr. Keung is against this bill. And that's just feel aggrieved. Well, they welcome environmental protection, but you're offering so little assistance to the trade. You have introduced the low sulfur field, and you have introduced other laws to protect our natural resources. But we don't see a lot of support and assistance offered to fishermen. So I hope the administration would pay attention to that. And can I have an answer for my first question? Thank you, Mr. Ho, for your questions. If we are to successfully prosecute a vessel for such an offense, of course, if it's committed within Hong Kong waters, we can board the vessel and we can prosecute the captain or the agent. If we try to track the vessel while it is leaving Hong Kong waters, yes, we can do that. But if it's already moving out towards the boundary, of course, we can see the offense committed. What we can do is to send the summons to an overseas jurisdiction. We are doubtful whether this is really effective as enforcement. So I think a more direct way is to contact the complainant to ascertain what the complainant saw. If the evidence is considered reliable and sufficient, we can take more effective action against the offending vessel. All right, after the bill is enacted, how is it going to help your enforcement? I just don't see any enhancement to enforcement by incorporating the recruitment chart in the bill. You've just prosecuted 6 or 8 cases in the past few years. So are we talking about a lot of foreign vessels here? Maybe let me supplement, Chairman. Dark smoke emissions are a problem that has been improving over the years. It's 1.4% last year, a much lower level than what we saw in previous years. And the question is whether we only target foreign vessels. The answer is no. Why do we want to introduce or incorporate the recruitment chart? Let's use the examples quoted by Mr. Zimmerman. Southern District residents live near the sea. They see smoke, dark smoke. But how can they prove to a judge that that's a nuisance? Under the current law, there's no way you can prove this in court and convict the offender. If we change to an objective standard, then they see how dark the smoke is and the duration of the emissions. And as Mr. Zimmerman has suggested, the point is how can we make sure that the public are aware of this piece of legislation more extensively, and then everyone can chip in to help to fight air pollution. Mr. Zimmerman, you want to say something?
As a district councillor, that the Marine Department will give all of my residents who face the East Lama Channel a Ringelmann chart. But then if they, but a photograph or a report of these residents got to be then sufficient to take actions. But if that is not sufficient to take actions, then it's basically a toothless tiger. So that's my real concern is I have all the residents facing the Lama Channel, they're all happy to report. We have residents facing Hong Kong Harbour, Victoria Harbour, they're all happy to report. But if the government, if that report is useless and it cannot be acted upon, then these people will be disappointed and then nothing will happen in the future. So I'm afraid that announcing this and taking it to the public, unless it's easily enforceable, this is a toothless tiger and they're only going to frustrate the community.
政府當局係咪應該有個打算呢？
Is the administration prepared to, say, go to the Southern District Council or to relevant constituencies in the district and get in touch with people who are concerned about this, who would like to know more about the enforcement regime, and then you can tell them the ways that they can offer you assistance, and how the bill can help us collect evidence, objective evidence, to improve things. I see you nodding. I hope this is going to be borne out, and I hope after the bill is passed, things will be improved as promised. Chairman, we agree very much with your proposal. We're going to the relevant district councils, which are concerned about this bill, and we are willing to offer district seminars for interested parties. As for Mr. Zimmerman's request for giving the recommend chart to our citizens, I'm afraid we cannot do this now. We'll publicize the recommend chart, and if necessary, they can get the information they need. When we receive complaints and when we collect evidence, we show them the chart, and then they can speak from their memory or from other information such as photos or video clips that they have got. They would be able to understand whether the legal requirements have been met. Maybe you can discuss further details with the Southern District Council. I invite Mr. Keung to speak again. I'm concerned is that after the publicity, the wide publicity you give to the issue, then in the Southern District, say Aberdeen, many people live around the typhoon shelter, not like Mr. Zimmerman and his constituents, and what they see will be small vessels. And this administration and all administration are like this. They cannot really tackle the big offenders. The big tigers are left free. Why is it that the Marine Department cannot track down a big vessel which would take half an hour to pass the channel? This is not quite understandable. You can just station someone near the waterfront, and you would be able to witness everything. For the big vessels, they have a logbook. They have to record everything. You can easily get hold of the logbook, and you can show it to the judge. When was the order given to change the fuel or to switch to a different fuel tank? It's easily ascertainable. I hope I don't want to see a situation whereby the big culprits, the big vessels, that is, are never caught, but the small vessels are all you can catch. I'm not saying that you should leave smoky vessels which are small alone, but I can testify that smaller vessels are less polluting because of the smaller engines. You should tackle the problems as shown in Mr. Zimmerman's photos. That's the spirit, that's the legislative intent. And you should not just go go for statistics just to be accountable, just to show people that you have carried out such a number of prosecution. That would be the wrong focus. And if you tell people that what the new law is about, people may see a small vessel emitting smoke, and then he or she may complain, and what you can catch will always be small vessels. Last round, Mr. Chang.
I would like to respond to the remarks made by the government. They told us about the effects of visual inspection, etc. But I'm a bit worried. First of all, we all want to know the basic figures behind the 1.4%. So how many visual inspections were made last year? I think they don't do this very often. Well, of course, we understand that they have limited manpower. That's why we always say that with the passage of the bill, the law can be enforced in a better manner. For visual inspection, it seems that its effectiveness has improved a bit. But when we look at the whole picture, we know that by 2015, we have to reduce our air pollutants to a certain level, and that's another level in 2020. When you compare the figures of 2012 and 2010, there's only a reduction of 0.5% when it comes to a reduction of PM10. I think we all have to work together to make it better. By 2015, I hope we can reach our emission reduction goals. We should cooperate. We should not pass the buck to each other. So with this new piece of legislation, I hope that the emission level can be really reduced. Can the government tell us more? For example, how many visual inspections have been carried out in the past 2 years? And with the passage of this bill, will there be significant improvement? And just now the government said that, well, sometimes it's very difficult to serve summons on certain OGVs because they belong to overseas companies. Now, even though you cannot take these vessels to the court, however, if you cannot serve summons on them, can you adopt other measures? For example, having a blacklist so that such OGVs can be banned from entering Hong Kong waters again. Mr. Chen or Ms. Chen or Mr. Chung would like to answer this question? Mr. Chung. With regard to visual inspection, I would like to give you some more figures. Last year, we have inspected 1,453 vessels visually, and only 21 vessels were spotted with dark smoke, and that's 1.4%. From 2007 to 2013, we have inspected 11,881 vessels visually. And when this new law comes into operation, we may not increase the frequency of visual inspection, but we will monitor the emission of dark smoke and we will adjust our work accordingly. Mr. Chung asked whether we will adopt other measures. So as to supplement our enforcement. For OGVs, If there are complaints against them, of course, we will monitor such OGVs more closely. When such OGVs come to Hong Kong again, we may send officers to monitor the emission situation. And we also hope that within Hong Kong waters, we can take them to the court if they are proved to be emitting dark smoke. As Mr. Zimmerman said just now, he said that residents in the southern district can help. But what if these vessels are leaving Hong Kong waters? So we have to look at the evidence again. If there is sufficient evidence, our normal practice is to write to the country that this vessel belongs to, and we hope that country will follow up on the case. However, most of the time, the governments of these countries will just tell us that they will be asking the OGVs to comply with the local laws. Now, with regard to the suggestion concerning blacklist, would the administration respond to this? Would you consider compiling a blacklist? I actually have just responded to this question. We do not have such a blacklist, and we would not be banning OGVs from coming into Hong Kong waters because we don't think this is proportionate. As I said just now, after receiving a complaint, we will be paying more attention to that particular vessel. We hope that by doing so, we can allay the problem of dark smoke emission. Well, just now the government told us that it's impossible or not feasible to give a recommend chart to every resident. But now we have a lot of technologies. You can have a recommend chart online. So if that's not possible, do you have other suggestions? Well, for colors, there are technical standards. You can have numbering. So you can set such standards. This is just a basis for lodging complaints. This is not a basis for prosecution. Of course, the government will do the prosecution. However, you can provide people with some simple tools so that they can check against the emissions. Can you do that? I can supplement. For the recommend chart, it is a chart with copyright, so we cannot just put it everywhere. Well, you can get authorization from the relevant copyright holder. Now, we can come up with our ways. For example, we can take photos of different dark smoke emissions, and then we can say that this is shade 1, this is shade 2, etc. I understand the member's suggestion. We will try our best to explain the requirements under this new piece of legislation. Well, I don't know what will happen then. Now, you're talking about copyright. Well, it doesn't matter whether there's copyright or not. You just need to pay the copyright holder. You can put the chart online, and you just pay the copyright holder for that. It's all about authorization. Mr. Zhong, have you thought about that? Maybe this is just a very simple issue. The people just want to help. And now you are checking the responsibility. You are saying that it's all about copyright. So even though the Marine Department wants to ask more people to help, it's useless. Well, we will show the public the recommend chart. However, we have to come up with ways. Yes, we understand what people want. We'll try to come up with a way. As for authorization or things like that, we will look into it and see how we can achieve the goal. I would like to follow up on Mr. Sin's question. At the last meeting, we said that the industry wants to know more. That is whether their vessels are complying with the law. Well, let's not talk about the 7 million people in Hong Kong, but how about the coxswains? They should know more. So let's just talk about the fishing community. Can you distribute the chart to them? Mr. Sin, you can supplement. Well, you say that it's difficult to distribute the chart to all the residents, but it's reasonable to provide the chart to the coxswains, right? Or you can just put together an app. So it's very easy. They can just take a photo and then compare the emission in the photo to the recommend chart. So that will be very easy. So you can have this kind of app. So they can turn on their smartphone, they can take a photo of the vessel, and underneath the photo there is this recommend chart, and then you can make a direct comparison, and then they can send this to you directly. I don't think you have to wait for the establishment of the Innovation and Technology Bureau, right? Now, if you have such a tool, now the marine departments can create such an app, and then they can take a photo and compare the emission to the recommend chart. Yes, I've heard members' views. I will talk to the EPD and try to find out more about their enforcement actions against smoky vehicles. I would like to reiterate that we will try our best to satisfy members and Mr. Zimmerman's suggestions.
Wrong,
Thank you.
we have to move on.
I'm a smoky vehicle spotter, and I can tell how it works. You go to the training center, and they'll switch on the engine of a car, and they'll show you the different levels of smoke, and they tell you this is bad smoke and this is okay. And then later on, when you report that you have seen, then the vehicle is being called in, and then if then they test it and they see if it actually has bad smoke or not. And then if you make a lot of reports and the vehicle is called in, it never has bad smoke, then they will never take your reports anymore, and they cancel your spotter license. But in this case, you can't do that because the vessel is gone. So, but I think we talked in actually a stage before that, you've seen my residents take all the photographs, but how do they know whether that photograph makes sense or doesn't make sense? I've seen a lot of photographs that don't meet the Ringelmann charts, but then the Marine Department, Harbour Patrols to follow up, so they're spending all the resources. I think it's very cheap to print grey color on a plastic sheet, and I will distribute it for free via my newsletter to all my 5,000 residents households. And they can all sit there and put it on the window, and they can see on that chart with graduated grey whether that is bad smoke or not smoke before they make a report. Saves you resources. I distribute it, you print it. I mean, it can't be difficult. And then on the bottom, instead of like it's a Ringelmann chart, you said based on the Ringelmann chart. Whatever, but I mean, there must be a solution. Otherwise, this law is nonsense. If you don't help people for you to make sure you can prosecute, then it's not going to work. Chairman, thank you.
Thank
you. Mr. Chang, last round. Thank you, Chairman. I would like to supplement. When this ordinance is gazetted, I think I'll see the recommend chart, right? It is not a secret. And actually, in the audit reports, we have also seen this chart. So I would like to ask this question again, that is about the frequency or the times of visual inspection. I'm not asking about the number of vessels. Well, because the audit commission said that you did it once in 2010 and you did it once in 2011. So I'm talking about the number of visual inspection, not the number of vessels that you inspected. As for the number of visual inspections, I do not have that figure in hand right now. Maybe I can give you that figure after the meeting. Mr. Sun Chung-kai, you would like to ask another question? Now, I have just downloaded this from the web. Now, all colors are made up by red, green, and blue. And if they are mixed in different percentages, then different colors would appear. So, for example, gray, they say that R is 175, green 174, and green is blue some another figures. Then you will come up with a new color.
And then you can equate this with requirement shape 2 or grade straight 3. You can have a chart prepared with technical specifications and get it done. You can provide an app, or you can ask or teach people how to print the technical range or print the chart with technical range specified. Please talk to your colleagues. I think that's clear enough, and I hope and I believe the administration would take follow-up action. I would like to thank Mr. Zimmerman and two other gentlemen for attending our meeting. Thank you. Members, let's continue with some follow-up actions arising from the last meeting. Members may have read this. We have 3 papers here. CB4 712-1314-01 is a list of follow-up action arising from the discussion the last meeting, and we've got a response. It's CB4 712-1314-02, in which you can find answers to questions raised by members from the administration. And also the administration has provided responses to the submissions made by deputations, and that is CP4 712-1314-03. Now I would like to invite the administration to introduce the responses contained in the paper. Do we have someone from the Bureau or the Marine Department to walk us through the paper? Mr. Chung. At the last meeting, members asked about overseas ports and their approach in carrying out enforcement action. So we have asked some port authorities the questions. From the Asia Pacific and North America, we contacted 12 ports and another 7 in Europe, and 2 others in the Middle East and 1 in South Africa. We put the questions to them and see and try to find out their experience in this regard. At the same time, we also send our inquiries to the European Commission concerning the deregulation of dark smoke emission of their member states. The EU and their member states, in respect of regulations, is focused on the emission of sulfur dioxide and nitrogen oxides. They don't have special regulation measures on the darkness of smoke. Rotterdam has said that if they receive reports of excessive smoke emission, they will visit the vessel, then ask for immediate remedial action to rectify the emission problem. If the smoke cannot be reduced, the smoke emission problem cannot be rectified within a short time, they would impose a fine. But they do not use the recommend chart or other tools in the process. Singapore, like us, uses the nuisance requirement for enforcement. The UK is using Shape 2 on the recommend chart as the enforcement standard. So in summary, from the responses gathered, the recommend chart is the only tool known to have used by overseas port authorities to regulate smoke emitted from vessels, apart from the nuisance approach. Turning to investigation, enforcement and prosecution procedures by my department, we have explained this already, and I don't think I need to repeat all the points here. I'll pause here to see if members have got any views on the responses. Mr. Shin Chung Kai, have we monitored SO2 and nitrogen oxides? In the regulation of vessel emissions, under the Air Pollution Ordinance, the responsible authority is the Environmental Protection Department. What the Marine Department has been doing is a legacy of what we did decades ago, and that is emission causing nuisance. And now we want to seek some improvement. What we try to regulate is the emission of dark smoke. But this is a question for the Bureau. I know it's not the job of the Marine Department. Is the Bureau aware of the regulation on sulfur dioxide and nitrogen oxides by other departments? Well, I'm speaking from what I know. You can see Mr. Zimmerman have shown us the charts on emissions. So the EPD is doing this in a general sense. The regulation of machines on board a vessel to ensure that the SO2 and NOx will not exceed the required standards is something that you have to do when the machines are designed. The design has to be certified internationally in respect of air pollution. So the certificate shows that the emissions of the vessel, machine, or engines will not exceed global standards. That's all I know. Can we get an answer from the EPD? According to paragraph 4, some jurisdictions would regulate the emission of sulfur dioxide and or nitrogen oxides from vessels. I would like to know what kind of regulation will be carried out by the EPD in this respect. Understood. We are now handling the problems arisen from dark smoke, but dark smoke is just the aggregate of pollutants. if we can find out the constituents of dark smoke, then we can do a better regulation job. I don't know whether these overseas port authorities are also monitoring suspended particulates or PM10, PM 2.5. Ms. Chan, well, this is what I've understood from the EPD. Well, the EPD is very concerned about the problem with RSPs. So with this council, a new measure has been introduced to tackle the problem at source, and that is the sulfur content of fuel should not exceed 0.05% now. And they're also drafting legislation to regulate that ocean-going vessels must use fuel with a sulfur content of 0.05% or less when they're berthed in Hong Kong. I've asked if they would check the emission, but they are saying that it's difficult to check the emissions while the ships are at sea. But I can get a more specific answer from the EPD. We don't know whether it's a question of what goes in will come out. They may use a better fuel, but that might not have a direct bearing on the emission level. Do they have any enforcement action? Mr. Stephen Ho. I've read paragraph 4 and paragraph 5. I'm a bit puzzled. They've asked so many port authorities, Hamburg, Melbourne, the EU. Only one jurisdiction used the Rickman chart, and the paragraph 4 said that the Rickman chart is the only tool known to have been used. So are we missing something, or are we misunderstood something? And paragraph 4, sentence 1. The Port Authority of Hamburg and the EU have responded that their controls are focused on the emission of sulfur dioxide and or nitrogen oxides from vessels rather than on the opacity or darkness of smoke emitted. So they cannot really collect samples. So are they just regulating the fuel? How can they collect information on sulfur dioxide and nitrogen oxides then? And I quote, as for Rotterdam, according to its port authority, if its inspector sees a smoke emitting too much smoke or receive complaint about excessive smoke emission, they will visit the vessel and request that immediate action be taken to rectify the point, which is usually a result of human error or is a technical issue by, for example, stopping the engine. So I hope more information can be given to prove the point that the Rickman chart is the only tool. Well, maybe there are only two tools. If we don't go for A, we go for B. Mr. Chung or other officials may please supplement. If we want to control the emission of pollutants, the global approach is to regulate it through the fuel. If the fuel is good, but the engine is bad, you can still have dark smoke. According to the EPD, good fuel does not guarantee the good emission. Dark smoke emissions points to a faulty engine. But if we want to reduce emissions, we cannot rely on this fuel, but we have to tackle it at source and look at the fuel and also the design of the engine. The global approach is what the EPD is doing. It is to take the measures taken by our EPD. Some European ports do not attach importance to the color or opacity of the smoke, because it might not have a direct bearing on emission or pollutants. Why do we go for recommend charge? It's because it's adopted by the US and the UK. Other ports which want to tackle the problem and the problems shown by dark smoke, then they use this too. Sorry. Please raise your hand. Who would like to speak? Well, this is a tool developed in the dinosaur era. I don't know what use it is. It is to be good for today. I have to think about it further. I don't know. I don't understand the logic. Of course, ordinary people would be concerned about air quality and the public health implications. So you regulate the sulfur content of the fuel and you take other measures. We have been urging the government to do more. And ocean-going vessels represent a big pollution source. And I understand that dark smoke is not the same thing. Of course, it has to do with pollution, but it has also got to do with the engine and the design of the machines. But the two, I don't think, are mutually exclusive. The Marine Department and the Environmental Protection Department are doing their job to improve air quality, to reduce pollution. So we are not going to say that after we have adopted the recommend chart, we can forget about the fuel.
Well, for the recommend chart, as you said, yes, maybe it is the only tool known to have been used by overseas port authorities. However, other countries may also be collecting the emissions, looking at their ppm and their contents of sulfur dioxide or nitrogen oxide, and then they will institute prosecution. So this can also be used as standards. They may have some more effective tools. So if there are more effective tools, we should use them. We are now trying to control the use of fuel. Well, we have never heard any prosecution concerning emission. So yes, please give us the information later. So members, with regard to the government's response, if you do not have any other follow-up questions, then let's look at the blue bill. At the last meeting, we have concluded a clause-by-clause examination. So members, would you be moving any amendments? We have to look at the legislative timetable. Well, the government has the following suggestion. It hopes that the second reading of the bill can be resumed on the 2nd of July. If members agree, then a report has to be submitted to the House Committee on the 13th of June. And the deadline for amendments will be the 16th of June. So members, do you want to see the resumption of second reading on the 2nd of July? I hope that more comprehensive information can be provided to us concerning publicity and education. I have made a lot of suggestions and you say they are not possible. So let us have your suggestion. You say that we cannot print the chart out, we cannot distribute other forms of information, etc. So what can be done? Yes, we hope that this can be done on the 2nd of July, but members have raised some concerns and we have to respond to them. We will try to reply to members as early as possible. If members are still not satisfied, then we can postpone the resumption of second reading. I haven't heard any objection to the resumption of second reading on the 2nd of July, but we hope to see more substantive information from the governments. The deputations have made their views known, and members have also expressed their opinions, so they want to see more information from you. The report will be submitted to the House Committee on the 13th of June, so let us have the information as early as possible. Ms. Chen said that if members are still not happy, then the resumption of second reading can be postponed. Did I hear you right? Because this is quite unusual. Yes, we heard that members support the use of the recommend charts in principle, but they still have some questions. So we hope that we can address these questions as early as possible, and we can stick to the timetable of resuming the second reading on the 2nd of July. Okay, then that's the general meeting now. Thank you.